So I am recording now. All right, Liz, now do your thing.
Great, thanks for remembering that, Sarah. Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Liz Veazey and I'm the chair of the Motive Board and really excited to be here and to continue our series of hosting mayoral candidates at our member meetings and sort of having a conversation and getting to know them and talking about some of the issues that we care about. You know, I think that we all know that the mayor is really, really important in Omaha because we have a strong mayoral system. And so if the mayor of Omaha is on your side, you can get a lot done. And if not, then probably you can't get much done. So really important. And that's part of why we're having this series. And, you know, I think we would say that the city has some really great commitments around things like Vision Zero, a commitment to zero deaths in our roadways, to active living with an active living advisory council, to like saying that we want to stop the brain drain and attract and retain young people. We have a award-winning complete streets policy. So I think Motive is really excited about all of those things and would love to be able to work with the city to really get to move forward on a lot of those areas and make the city, you know, better for all of us to live, work, play, and get around. So we can go ahead and kick things off. Jasmine, it's really great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I will turn it over to you for 3 minutes or so to sort of introduce yourself and say why you're running and whatever you want to say. And then we'll go through a series of a few questions that I have. I'll give you like 2 minutes to answer those, and then we'll sort of have some audience. We'll open it up and have people in the audience ask questions too. So hopefully we'll have a good discussion, but I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for inviting me out tonight to talk to you all. Sarah, congratulations on getting your signatures in and filing today. This is really exciting that we have people who are really running to create change in our city. Again, my name is Jasmine Harris. I am a public health expert and community organizer born and raised in North Omaha. I'm running for mayor of Omaha because I'm a firm believer that everyday people like you and I have the solution to the problems that our city is facing. I don't say that because I've dedicated my career to addressing them, but because I have lived and persevered through many of them in my own life. So many of the issues that I faced as a single Black mother over 19 years ago continue to plague our city today. We have too many Omahans are struggling to make ends meet, and our city leadership has failed to address the most basic of necessities that our family, friends, and neighbors continue to struggle with. After I graduated from UNMC with my master's in public health, I began to really focus on underlying conditions in our community that impacted the quality of life of many Omahans. And through that work, I became a proven leader of people. I've been mobilizing and organizing people around issues in our community so that people can feel empowered to create change, and not just within the community, but in the government as well. But it always, at the heart of it, I said we have to do it together. We can't work in silos, and we have to continue to break down how people are working separately so that way we can move forward together. I'm running for mayor to be that inclusive, proactive leader that we need here in our city. I want to be that partner in City Hall that is going to reach out and work with people in the community to address things like our continued response and recovery to COVID-19, when we are working on our public safety, and when we are looking at how do we ensure that our city services are equitable and running effectively and efficiently. We're in a fight for our future, and I'm ready to work as hard as you do to ensure that we can move Omaha forward together. But again, it can't be done in silos. We have to move Omaha forward together. I'm here to be that partner in City Hall to build an Omaha that's going to work for everyone, regardless of zip code, with you. some of the things that I again want to address immediately as soon as I get into office is that continued response and recovery to COVID-19. One, too many of our small businesses have taken the brunt when they had to lay people off and shutter their doors. So we need to ensure that we have an opportunity to build our businesses back so that we can have an economic impact again. And then it's the vaccination distribution. Right now, what we're seeing, people are walking into places that vaccines are being distributed and they're not in the groups that are up for vaccine and they're getting vaccinated. We don't have a lot of our communities of color, our people of color who are showing up to get vaccinated. So we need to really address the barriers that are there. Well, I also want to again address this public safety and looking at it from a standpoint of a prevention and proactive standpoint. So one, making sure that we are addressing the relationships that have been kind of ruined with our policing community and diverting people from the criminal justice system. And then again, making sure that we have innovative and modernized city services that are going to be equitably distributed across our city. So I'm here tonight and I thank you all for allowing me to come and talk with you.
Great,
Thank you
thanks.
for those time things. Wow.
I forgot to tell you, and I had to run and grab them. I forgot to get them before I started, but I will show like 30-second, 10-second and time just to help keep us on track.
Thank you, thank you.
Great, so I'm gonna kick off our first question and then I'll give you 2 minutes to answer. Much of our current transportation infrastructure excludes people who cannot drive for reasons of age, ability, or financial means. What would you do to make sure that Omaha accommodates the transportation needs? So thinking about equitable access to employment, commerce, and services of all citizens.
So we really need to start thinking around what our public transportation system looks like, but it's also not just the public transportation. We have to figure out having a multimodal city. Again, putting people, vehicles, and bikes all on equal footing. So that way people are able to get around our city in whatever way that they choose to. Like you said, it can be, they don't want a car because they don't want to have to keep up with the maintenance or they can't, age and things like that, like you just said. So I think it's really thinking around one, Metro area transit still runs the same way that it did when I was going to junior high school, and it hasn't changed. So we need to look at what we're doing. So Orbit started, great idea. Many cities have put that in place. We need to expand that. Right now with Dodge Street, I think it should have been a different area. That was the first pilot, actually getting people from their homes to jobs. In the work that I do, one of the biggest things that we have problems with is getting people to their jobs. We have people who have shift jobs that end too late, that can't catch public transportation to get back home and things like that. So it's really trying to ensure we are capitalizing on what has been put in place, but also expanding what we know is going to work. You mentioned complete streets earlier. And when I was doing physical activity work and getting people up and out, we looked at complete streets, and I was glad that the city passed that ordinance, but we're not doing anything to really ensure that it's being implemented. And that comes from that administrative level. So ensuring that we are working with our community members who want multimodal, who understand the landscape, and making sure that the department and city planning is putting that into place.
Cool, and you're done early. Nice. And so I'm going to circle back on Vision Zero. So we're really excited that Omaha has committed to Vision Zero along with cities around the world. Vision Zero means a goal of ending traffic deaths for all users on our streets and our roads. So it's sort of a couple questions. Do you support such an initiative in Omaha? If so, what is your vision for the work of the newly hired Vision Zero coordinator, and how do they help us get there?
Most definitely. We always want to save lives, especially from a public health standpoint. We don't want our children. I remember when they started the Drive 25, Keep Alive. So it's making sure that we are being proactive in how we are ensuring this public safety, the safety of our youth, the safety of everyone, to be frank. So I'm definitely all for Vision Zero. bringing in that coordinator, what I would like to see happen is working with community members, working with people who are doing the work. I say everybody all the time, I'm not an expert in everything. So I'm not going to be able to talk from a standpoint of I know exactly what needs to happen, but people who are doing this work day in and day out need to be at the same table. People who are traveling around our city in different ways need to be at the table. So that way we have all perspectives to ensure that the work is getting done in a manner that is going to be equitable. So I would want that person who is in that role to really work with community members to see how we can implement this. Coming from that standpoint of being in the mayoral role, like you said, it's a strong mayoral system. That's where all the influence comes from. So you have to have someone at the top who has that vision and who is going to be there to ensure that it runs.
Great, thanks. What is your assessment of the current capital improvement program or CIP process and outcomes? How could it be improved?
It can be more transparent. It can be more accessible to actual input from the community. What we saw this summer, I don't think many people were as I don't think people were as educated on the process when it came to the budget and the CIP plan. I know a lot of people really focused on the budget this summer because of the defund the police and things like that. But what got left out of that really was the CIP plan. And I really believe in order for Omaha to move forward, we have to revamp that. We have to look at why our underdeveloped communities have been left out of what that looks like and intentionally start putting planning into place that's going to move all of Omaha forward. And again, it's that transparency piece. And when I get into office, what I want to do is sit down with the director. I have a vision that Omaha is going to work for everyone, and the director cannot bring themselves to want to work towards that vision or are capable to work for that vision. I want to put someone else in that's going to be able to increase the plan and look at it from a different standpoint versus this is how we've been doing it. I think we're still working on plans from over 20 years ago, and we need to really look at where are we going to be 50 years from now, and that's what we need to plan for versus trying to catch up now.
Great, thanks. I think we've definitely seen a lot of challenges, resistance from the Public Works Department in terms of getting better multimodal infrastructure. So I think we would love to see a new person in charge of that department. Let's see. Will, did you want to ask your TOD or ADU question? Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Great, thank you. So my question relates to Omaha's exclusionary zoning code. So today, low density, large lot, single family is the only housing type permitted in most of the city, undermining the success of our public transit and efforts at housing affordability. Would you support expanding the recently passed transit-oriented development policy to more corridors? And would you support permitting accessory dwelling units, which are also known as granny flats or backyard cottages, citywide?
Thank you for that question. I will support anything that's going to increase the quantity of housing that we need in our city. I think we were just on a call the other day and we're short like, I think up to 80,000 units or something like that. So we need to think innovatively around how we're going to house our people in a manner that is going to be affordable and have safe and quality products. So I'm for looking at what it looks like to revamp the exclusionary zoning. I think, was it Minneapolis that just passed something in San Francisco, maybe? Somewhere in California that had just worked on some of that exclusionary zoning. So I think what we need to do is really start thinking around how do we build in versus out. We have a lot of places that need to be on the bus line for people to actually get access to jobs and things like that through that transportation. So we need to think innovatively around how we're doing that. I think another idea that people are starting to really have traction on is, like in Lincoln as well, is tiny homes. how are we looking around doing that as well? So increasing the multi-family and multi-income structure, and then innovatively with auxiliary dwelling units and tiny homes as well.
Great, thanks. You're on a roll. I haven't had to use my my card.
My team has been working with me about wrapping it up and landing the plane.
Nice. Last year, Omaha approved $200 million in street bonds to pay for street maintenance. Is this a good long-term solution for funding our street maintenance needs? If so, why? And if not, why not?
I think this was a scapegoat routine or tactic. I'm being frank. I'm sorry, you're recording too. So that way it was put on the people to say, well, you decided to spend this amount of money on the streets, versus actually looking at how are we putting in place actual multimodal and focusing on transportation from a holistic standpoint versus just the repair of streets. And the one thing I'm also worried about when we are spending this money is what materials are we using on the streets? Because if we are still using material that are going to have where the potholes are still crumbling, it's not going to matter how much money goes into it if we don't look at it from a smart and efficient standpoint. So I don't think that, personally, I didn't vote for the bond. I think there should have been more that went into doing that. So from that standpoint, I think we need to really look at how we are addressing transportation holistically in our city and not just spending money on research.
Great, thanks. And I saw Clyde was excited when you were talking about the kind of material we make the streets out of. I think we're all aware of the potholes, and I know Clyde is actually, I learned tonight, and it was an engineer involved with studies around concrete and how long it lasts. So people can ask Clyde questions in the chat about that.
Look, Clyde, can I get your information so we can chat a little more?
Sure. Yeah, it's Clyde L. Anderson at cox.net.
Thank you, Clyde.
You're welcome.
Glad you guys can connect. All right, I have one more question. Then if people want to start putting other questions in the chat, I know Derek is lined up to ask one, but if other folks have them, you can go ahead and put them in. So last question for me. Recent assessments of Dodge Street sidewalks find that they are difficult and dangerous to navigate. Where should funding come from to improve the quality of infrastructure and maintenance? Is a pedestrian-friendly environment important to you? And if so, how would you support it?
Most definitely. It should come exactly what we were talking about, complete streets. All of this should be funded from a city standpoint. Everything that is being torn up as we're going to be resurfacing all the roads, that should have accounted for being able to put in sidewalks that are going to help our community. I know I've been out talking with people, and one of the other things that we're running into are people who are in wheelchairs and the inaccessibility, especially now with the snow and not being able to use the sidewalks. And it's very dangerous, not just even along Dodge Street. I was coming out of the post office off of Saddle Creek and going up California, and people were having to walk in the street on that hill because that stuff isn't taken care of. So I think coming out of the budget, when we're talking about redoing streets and things like that, when we're tearing up curbs to do these streets, all of that needs to be put in place, and complete streets needs to actually be implemented versus just saying we have an ordinance for complete streets.
Cool. That was fast. Derek, I think I'm going to pass it to you, and then if other people want to put questions in the chat, or I guess you can wave your hand or something. And
okay, well, thank you. My question, this is a question I keep asking all the council people. We talk a lot about design speed, the speed that we design streets for cars to drive at, and it's usually well above the posted speed limit. And that leads to the effect of, like, think of Cumming Street, where people are genuinely or generally just 10 miles over the speed limit all the time. Dodge Street at 72nd, another prime example, where people are just driving faster than the speed limit. And this opens it up so that a police officer can pull anybody over at any time for just driving with traffic. How could we design the city better so that the streets are sort of self-enforcing rather than requiring police to enforce them, which leads to what we know is a negative interaction for a number of people?
Thank you for that question, Derek. I don't think people look at it from that standpoint when we're talking about the enforcement of speed. I know we did there's been all these roundabouts that have popped up over the past, it's been 5-6 years or so. So those are some of the designs that happen. I'm not an actual planner of the streets, so I don't know exactly what's all out there to be able to do that, especially like along Dodge Street or something like that. But what we saw when you put in speed bumps in certain areas, things like that, if you break it up with the lights, and that's just from a physical standpoint, and what I see can help control the speed a little bit. Also, I know what has been put in place in some areas is like the signs that tell you how fast you're going, so you can self-monitor. Because most people do. They're like, oh shoot, I'm not looking at how fast I'm actually going until I see it and it's flashing in my face. So I think there's a way that we can pull people together to get ideas and really think around how we do design our city so that we can. Again, that's one of my number one things is how do we divert people from having to have contact with law enforcement? And that should be up there. So thank you for that question, Derek. I may not have answered it like completely for
fantastic.
you, but
and if nothing else, I just want people to be aware that we've designed a system where we basically have encouraged everybody to break the law all the time, and that opens up the floodgates to pulling people over for any reason at any time, which has asymmetric consequences. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Looks like the next question I saw in the chat was from Sarah and Kai. Do you all want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, we can. Can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure you can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically what I asked is, what approach would you take as mayor to like new initiatives that the community brings to the table? Because I've heard the term bottom up and like top down approach, and the current mayor I feel like has a top down approach. And would you support a bottom up approach?
My work has always been in the community. I am off grassroots and people having access to government. So what I want to be able to do is increase community engagement and have where I don't seem like I'm inaccessible to people. We want to create an innovation hub where we are actually working with community members on ideas that are going to better Omaha. We're only going to move Omaha forward together. So that's not coming from a top-down approach of I have the best ideas. It's really working with people who have brilliant ideas, who can fit in and plug in and let us know how we can move Omaha forward. So it really is a people power movement and getting more people into City Hall because we understand that there has to be a partnership with the community.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, I see you're raising your hand. Other Sarah.
So many Sarahs as per usual. Yeah, I started to type it out and then I figured I'd just waste my hand. I'm just curious about your thoughts on participatory budgeting, kind of playing off of the idea of involving the community and how we make decisions and innovation. And sometimes we know that those ideas do come from the community. Most times they come from the community. So how do you feel about participatory budgeting?
I'm all for participatory budgeting. There is no reason that community members should not be able to say how tax dollars are being used, especially like what right now we have the TIF, and that's taxpayers' dollars hard at work, but not working for a community. So there should be something set up where we are looking at how do we get more people involved? How do we ensure that they have a say in the city they live in? And again, it's not just this top-down approach of this is what all this money is going to be spent on. When we are hearing the grievances from the community, when we're hearing the grievances from the people and how it's being spent, but we're saying, but we have community participation when we technically don't. So it's really looking at bringing the community along the way. And participatory budgeting, I believe, is one of those aspects.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah. That's great. Let's see. Did we have any other questions in the chat? Brian, did you have a question about Saddle Creek, or you were just bringing that up as another place that people speed?
I was just mentioning places where people speed.
Okay. Will, do you want to ask another question? Do you have another question up your sleeve? Oh, Cindy's raising her hand. We'll go to Cindy.
So I'll ask my basic question. Right now, the city does not, well, they say they do, but they really don't, identify sidewalks as modes of transportation. And even in the complete streets, yeah, right? And even in complete streets, they only talk about pedestrian zones or follow through. There's nothing that says a sidewalk is a mode of transportation. And I'm also having, just because we've had this, well, I have like 3 issues with that. Number 1, sidewalks need to be done exactly at the same time as streets are done. There should not be a 24-hour waiting period because of kids needing to go to school, people need to go to the transit stop. The other thing is believe it or not, and I would love to invite you to walk with me, on 72nd and Dodge, there are not painted crosswalks at 72nd and Dodge. I actually had to ask 2 cars to back up today so that I could cross safely. Yes, Derek. I got called the B word a couple of times. Yeah, but you know, to go around the car, I would have had to gone into an unsafe zone. There is a stop line that it's hard to see, and that's all the city will give us. They will not give us crosswalks. And with the new developments and so forth. So I'd like to know, how would you address the problems that we're actually having, like with public works, and trying to get things so that there's actual safety for pedestrians?
I don't like to ask the question with a question, but what are they telling you when you go to them with this?
So we were told that we cannot have crosswalks at 72nd and Dodge. Number 1, because the counts weren't there, and they did not do the pedestrian count when they said they were going to do them. They were supposed to do it during an April timeframe, during a school day, 3 days in a row, fairly good weather, and they do it like several hours at a time, and then they take the averages. The date that they did the sidewalk or pedestrian count was July 6th. And that was probably 3 years ago. Derek, is that right?
Yeah, that was just and that was it. Like that was, and you know, it's not when Lewis and Clark is in session. It's not, yeah.
Oh. And so basically they just kind of like, oh, we'll just add 100 because it's been about 3 years. So we'll just add 100 more people. So it's really inaccurate, but it's also our safety. I cross 72nd and Dodge 3 and 4 times a day sometimes. And it's frustrating. Okay, so the other thing is that our current leadership feels that sidewalks give pedestrians a false sense of security, right?
You mean crosswalks?
Crosswalks. What did I say?
I think you said sidewalks.
Sidewalks. Yeah, so the current leadership feels that crosswalks give a false sense of security to pedestrians. And that's taken from studies that were done in the 70s and 80s, and they were done at unmarked crossings. So 72nd and Dodge, for instance, has ADA compliant crossings. They have both visual and auditory. But yet we don't have crosswalks. We have a pedestrian zone or crossing zone, but cars don't adhere to that. So as mayor, is there something that you might be able to work with that?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes to addressing the leadership in that department. You know, it's going to come from that top-down approach. When we're talking about trying to get change created, yes, we want the change from the community to happen. but it's also going to need an advocate at the top who's going to say, hey, we have this vision. We have people who are coming with grievances. They have solutions to the problem, and we're not even listening to them. So it's really setting the tone and the culture of the administration, so that way, one, people feel that their grievances are actually considered and heard and validated, and then finding solutions that they're bringing to address the problem. So that's what I would bring in as mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Clyde, I see you raising your hand.
Back 2 years ago, 2019, Senator Wayne introduced the Regional Metropolitan Transit Authority Act, and which was voted or approved by the legislature. The governor vetoed it, and he made an eloquent speech, and I was miraculously managed to get the legislature to override the governor's veto, and it became law. And so, and it only pertains to Omaha, and will allow us to establish a regional transit authority with a 7-person elected board instead of a board appointed by the mayor. However, it seems like they're starting to drag their feet, even though the city supported it, Metro Transit supported it, but it doesn't seem like they're really progressing the implementation. And will you support getting this moving and getting us upgraded to a regional transit authority?
Most definitely. I think once laws are passed from the state and when it's up to the city, we need the administration that's in place that's going to actually do the work. And I'm here to be that partner in City Hall who is going to work just as hard as everyday people, just as hard as I work in my day-to-day job right now, to ensure that we are working for all Omahans. So that is one of those things the administration needs to ensure we are putting in place those kind of laws that have passed, making sure the board is there, and I'm most definitely on board to get that going.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Good question, Clyde. Sarah, you want to ask your other question?
Just in case no one else has questions, I've always got questions. One of them involves the panhandling ordinance is what I'll call it. I mean, obviously that's to me problematic because it says people aren't allowed on medians when a lot of times we were just talking about crosswalk issues and you have to use the pedestrian refuge that is the median. And now we've said that it's illegal. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on what that might look like to change or reverse, or maybe you like it, just if you could talk about that a little bit.
My plan is to reverse the panhandle ordinance from the standpoint, one, because we're criminalizing homelessness. And when you're saying that, I didn't think of it from that standpoint of people having to use it through the crosswalks, but if they're saying that they're fining people for that, then yes, that has to go as well, because it's going to be people who are actually trying to cross streets who they deemed aren't important enough to have crosswalks.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I agree that it is targeted at homelessness, but from the mode shift lens, I try to wrap it all together. But yeah, it's silly, and she's silly, and I'm gonna mute.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else who hasn't asked a question, have a question they want to throw out there? Thought I'd give people the opportunity. Surprised we don't have questions. I feel like there's always so many. Derek, you unmuted yourself.
I will always ask questions, but my questions always come off as more of like a complaint, criticism, and advice. So sorry. But back to my earlier conversation about like how we design for reduced speed and things like that. Have you been along 30th Street North where there is now painted bike lanes? Have you seen the bike lanes on 30th Street? So one of the things that came up in our previous conversation was talking about, when we had the city council people at our coffee chat, was the conversation about how those felt to the neighborhood like it was something being imposed on them rather than something that they were opting into. So how do we effectively, to Will's point, add ADUs and more like dense family housing? How do we add more bike lanes around the city where it doesn't feel like the word that often gets thrown around is gentrification. How do we make sure that we can make places nicer without actually either in fact or in feeling gentrifying the area?
I think, again, it's ensuring people are being included in the beginning. So when it's the whole process, so that way people know exactly what people from the area want, people from the neighborhood want. Are they using bike lanes? And then it's giving them the education and the information so they know exactly what it is, and not saying, okay, bike lanes are being equated with gentrification, because at the end of the day, they're only being put in place because apartments are being built that we can't afford. So I think it's breaking it down from that standpoint and saying, hey, if we're not going to go build apartments in this area of town, but we're saying bike lanes and complete streets are safe, let's ensure that we're talking to the neighborhoods and saying, hey, this is what we are thinking, but we want to include you in the process, and what all do you want and what all do you need? And there are great neighborhood associations where people can, where the city should be tapping into and using more when it comes to getting feedback from the community versus just like the advisory boards and things like that.
Yes, fantastic, thank you. And like, just to do one more plug, the work that Manny Cook is doing with Spark CDI on the North Omaha Trail, I think is a fantastic example of community inclusion, with something that would probably, if the city just did it top down, to Kai's point earlier, be thought of as like top down, we're just imposing this on you, but it feels very bottom up. So thank you. That's
Cool. I think we can take maybe one or two questions. Will, you want to?
I could jump in, Liz. Yeah. So the city, we talked a bit about the CIP already, the capital improvement plan. The city currently has roughly 280 million earmarked for road and intersection widening. Would you support rescuing some of those dollars and funding a protected bicycle lane / mobility lane network, and mobility lane adding in scooters plus bicycles?
Most definitely. Again, we need to put people, vehicles, and bikes on, all on equal footing. So if we're going to invest 280 in widening roads, we again need to ensure that everybody is able to get around our city in the modal transportation way that they choose. So it's not just saying these are just for cars, because we do have the scooters, we do have people biking, and we need to ensure they're safe as well.
Thank you.
Yo, I got one more question.
Okay, sure, Kai.
So I don't know how this topic takes place on your platform, but how do you feel about like a plastic ban, perhaps? Because I know that the city, the city council voted for it, but the mayor vetoed it, so it didn't get put into action. But how do you feel about it?
And that was the plastic bag ban, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm for that. I remember when I was going through my public health program, and my professor, he did this character called Bag Daddy, right? And that's when I really started thinking around how much we are throwing these plastic bags out into our environment.
Somehow you muted.
Muted yourself.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, someone's calling. But I went out to the dump and just saw all these trash bags, like the plastic bags, just flying around. So that really got me to thinking how much we are not taking serious the trash that we put out into our environment. So I would definitely be for a plastic bag ban. We would have to think around how we're ensuring people are getting like reusable bags to take their groceries and things like that, which reminds me, I should probably order some more.
All right. I think a lot of us care about that, even though I guess that's not exactly a mode shift issue, but having those like Nebraska tumbleweeds, as we call them, plastic bags in the trees everywhere and on the road everywhere makes it like not a very nice place, a less nice place to bike or walk or be a pedestrian.
Mhm.
So my husband is saying he got one stuck in his bike spokes one time. So
Oh,
it could
no.
be safety
Yeah.
issue also.
Mhm.
All right, anybody have a one final question we want to wrap up on? Or Sarah, you want to?
Well, I was just going to say maybe since we're shooting for 7:45, a few moments for closing remarks and then move on to our next guest. But I don't know what type of time limit you have on that, Liz, but I think it's about time to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I forgot about the closing remark part, but yes, we will let you make, I guess, like a 2-minute or so closing remark. You've been way under time for everything so far.
Again, trying to wrap it up and be succinct, right? Again, thank you all for inviting me tonight. I am truly grateful for any opportunity that I get to speak with more people as I get to hear more from community members, more from those who are actually ground zero working and witnessing what's going on in the city versus just people being at the top in their offices, not really connecting. Again, I'm working to be mayor of Omaha so that I can be that partner that we all need that's going to make things happen. I'm here to build a better Omaha with you, not for you, not down from the top against you. This is for all of us. So that way, as our future generations are coming up, we are building an Omaha that's not just okay. Because that's what everyone says. We're okay. We should be more than okay. Omaha should be great, and we can only do it together. So thank you all. I look forward to connecting with you all one-on-one if you need to, things like that. We have volunteer opportunities if you're looking for a way to plug into Team Jasmine. So just visit volunteer or voteforjasmine.com/volunteer, and you can get connected there.
Great, thanks so much for joining us. And feel free to put any info you want in the chat if you want to share the link to your site. Oh, I see some hearts and clapping and stuff from people. Hopefully,
Will do. We'll have to hop off though because I got to get the kids together. Oh, thank you, Derek. There you go.
Thanks, everybody. Then we're going to switch over to another candidate for mayor, Kimara. I think, Kimara, you are here with us, right? I see your name. I can't hear you yet if you're there, Kimara.
This is the seance part of online schooling where it's like, Kimara, are you with us? We can see you. We know you're here. So I've been doing a lot of online schooling, so I'm in that mode.
Well, Kimara, we still can't hear you. Maybe you can, if you're there and you're having trouble getting to audio, maybe you can just like talk to us in the chat and we can provide the call-in number or something to try to help with that.
Now it's an Ouija board too.
Let's see.
I am trying from the back end here to click what I can to ask her to start the video or see if she's there. Oh, she's back to the, okay, yes, here we go. Let's see. Waiting room, admitting.
Oh, okay.
She might have bounced out and back in. Joining.
Kimara, are you there?
So while we live in purgatory, can I just share that I was chatting with somebody yesterday about why you stay in Omaha, and part of the reason that I think I stay in Omaha is that we can have these direct conversations with people who are running for mayor. If you went to a bigger city, an organization of our size wouldn't have this kind of sway, and I really appreciate that about what we're doing. So that's just a side conversation I was having, and I appreciated it, so I thought I'd share that.
Kimara, can you hear us? This is totally like weird seance stuff. You're right. Huh. Shoot. I see her on our list.
This is like the opposite of the Zoom bomb.
Right. It's a Zoom vacuum. Well,
Well, I put the call-in info in the chat, but it should also be in the email.
Who's got a good joke? Just kidding. Kind of. I do like good jokes, but that's probably not what. I'll try to message this to her in Facebook Messenger.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thanks, Sarah. Well, people.
So my wife, who's just listening in the background, says that, you know, after Will's comment about like, do you support ADUs, and Jasmine did support ADUs, which felt like a push question, you know, like you probably support this, right? So she says that we should ask about drawbridges in the next question, just to see if they're paying attention or if they're just like, whatever you say, we support it. That's not a joke, but it was something my wife noticed as we were talking.
What's wrong with drawbridges?
I'm pro drawbridge. I've been to Chicago, great drawbridges.
Well, we have one, it's actually a swing span in the Missouri River that's been out of service for about 30 years. We've been trying to get it back in service to give access between Council Bluffs and North Omaha for rail traffic.
Yeah, that was the one that I referenced. I said we don't have a drawbridge, but we have I didn't know it was a swings bridge. Is that what we call it?
Yeah, swing span. It has a center pivot. It turns on.
I knew how it worked. I've biked past it a bunch of times. I just didn't know what it was named. See, this is why Clyde sticks around, so I can get my train terminology.
Oh, I think Kimara has joined us and appears to be muted, which is new and wasn't there before. So I think, Kimara, are you there? Can you unmute? Kimara, are you there?
I just tried to send, if you are there, Kimra, I just sent you, if you can't access the chat here, I just tried to Instagram message you. Oh, we're admitting her again. Everyone cross your fingers and your toes. Is it working? Yay, I see you, Kimra.
Hey, you made it.
Oh, we
can't hear you, but we can see you. Maybe Derek has some nice signs.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, yes.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, I never do anything from home. The broadband in my area is horrible. I mean, it's horrible. It's really, really horrible. And I will digress because that's another issue that we face in this city. But thank you so much for your patience. I really apologize.
No need to apologize. You're here now and we're glad that you're here. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad that we can hear you.
Me too. With my phone, this is awkward for me.
No worries. I think our last, I think Jasmine was maybe on her phone, but so we'll take what we can get. I'll start off with a quick intro, similar to the one that I gave earlier, so it'll sort of be a repeat for people, but you maybe weren't here, Kimara. So, well, we're really excited to have you here and to have this series of conversations with mayoral candidates, because the mayor is obviously very important in Omaha since we have a strong mayoral system, and you know, we really need the mayor to be proactive on these issues if we're going to make progress. And you know, we've seen some good commitments at the city level to Vision Zero, so no traffic deaths in our roads, to active living with the Active Living Advisory Committee, to stopping the brain drain, attracting and retaining young people. So there's a lot of good talk and even some things on paper. We also have an award-winning Complete Streets policy. So we're really excited about those things and think that there, you know, could be a lot of progress, and we could really have a lot better city for everyone if we really dug into and pushed forward around some of those things that the city has already committed to. So we're excited to potentially work more with the city on achieving those goals and really making the city a better place for everybody to live, work, and play and get around. So we'll kick off and give you like 3 minutes for like a candidate statement, who are you, why are you running, sort of introduce yourself. And then I have some time cards that I will hold up to try to keep you on time at 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then at time. And then after your statement, we'll go through, I have some questions, and then we'll open it up and have questions from the audience.
Wonderful.
You want to kick it off and introduce yourself?
Sure. So hello, thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I feel kind of bad because I have not been at board member meetings, but I have been just a tiny bit busy. But my name is Kimara Snipes, and I am from Omaha, Nebraska. I am currently running to be the mayor of Omaha. I have a long history of dedication to the city. I currently serve on the Omaha Public Schools Board, and I'm also president of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance, where we really strive to enhance neighborhoods, and we do that through communication, collaboration, empowerment, and promoting positive perceptions. As an alliance leader and as a school board member, I have been friendly with our mayor, but I am firm in that friends are honest with one another, and it is my opinion that she has not earned a third term in office. As far as why I'm running, last year when COVID really began to shut the city down, I was out front early, working with leaders in the community because I do nothing by myself, and we were really addressing high-risk neighborhoods in North and South Omaha, high-risk neighborhoods affecting Black and Brown people who have been disproportionately affected. Our mayor was slow to respond. I live in 68107, which has had the highest numbers. And for me, it's beyond just taking it personal. It's just that our lives really depend on leadership. And so being the first person to create task forces, I said, just why not? Also, as someone with a history in workforce development, we have watched as jobs have left our communities. Little has been done to bring those jobs back. We tout an unemployment rate of 3%, but we have different zip codes in North and South Omaha, and even outside of that, possibly, that fluctuate in the double digits. And that is heartbreaking because people need jobs. I would also say that after the social justice protests of last year, our mayor showed that she is out of touch with the community. We need someone who can restore public trust. And then with the work that we've been doing in neighborhoods, we have been actively working on police-community relationships for a very long time. So my intent is to bring my experience, my history, my knowledge, but also my networks and the collaborations and coalitions that I've built to really help push Omaha forward into a 21st century city. And it goes beyond that. We have to talk about sustainability of city services. We have to talk about connectivity, as I was just talking about how I was barely able to get on here tonight. We have to talk about investing in our young people. I also have a history of working with youth through the library, through other nonprofits as well. Omaha is destined to be a 21st century city, but I can't stress enough that we can't continue practicing the same 20th century politics. So thank you very much for having me tonight.
Great, thanks. Cool. And you were a little early. Well, I have a couple questions and I'll give you about 2 minutes to answer those, and then we'll open it up for other questions. Much of our current transportation infrastructure excludes people who cannot drive for reasons of age, ability, or financial means. What would you do to make sure that Omaha accommodates the transportation needs? So thinking about equitable access to employment, commerce, and services of all citizens.
One thing I don't see enough when it comes to transportation, and just full disclosure, I am someone who has had to use public transit, and I had to use it for quite a while, having no car and being kind of left with nothing after suffering a virus while unemployed that left me in poverty, basically. And so really what we have here is, one, a lack of investment, proper investment. We see that investment in transportation here is far below the national level, but I also would say that we have a lack of intent and a lack of practicing that real intellectual curiosity, and a lot of talking, not really putting things to action. We have what we need here. We just need to be aggressive and intentional with that. I would definitely invest more. I would be an advocate for the people as well. We have the legislation introduced by Senator Wayne that ended up being vetoed and brought back. I recognize that some things are not deemed as city issues, but the mayor can be an advocate. The mayor is also the person who appoints the board for Metro. right? We need intent with that. Full disclosure, I tried to be on that board. And as someone with a history in workforce development who understands that maybe we should be working with the chamber to make sure we quit putting jobs in the Springfields of Sarpy County and possibly someplace here so job seekers can get to them. We need to collaborate more as well. So I guess I would say the investment piece, but even more so the listening piece. She does not listen enough. And that's really unfortunate, because if you listen, then you would understand and know what the problems are. And if we collaborate with each other, the chamber, the city, and Metro, we can really solve these issues. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just want to scream yes about that real quick. Sorry.
We are excited that Omaha has committed to Vision Zero, along with cities around the world. Vision Zero, as I think you know, means a goal of ending traffic deaths for all users on our streets and our roads. So do you support such an initiative in Omaha? And if so, what is your vision for the work of the newly hired Vision Zero coordinator, and how do they help us get there?
I absolutely do. And I agree with it 100%. I actually just lost someone who was a best friend of mine for a couple of decades at the beginning of this year to a traffic accident, but we do that they are preventable. And so I agree with that 100%. And I believe that our streets should be safe for everyone, regardless of which mode of transportation you're using. So I would definitely support that. And as far as working with a coordinator, I would make sure that I introduce that coordinator to all of our neighborhood alliances and really make sure that we're working with the neighborhood alliances, one Omaha, to make sure people are educated properly, but to make sure, to make sure people are educated properly. The alliances also should have great relationships with their elected officials. So that way the people who are passing the policy can also be listening to the people, and the coordinator can do just that, coordinate all of that, pull it together to really get that implemented.
Great, nice and concise. What is your assessment of the current capital improvement program, or CIP, process and outcomes? How could it be improved?
Well, I mean, it should be equitably distributed. And even outside of just throughout the city, I think even when we talk about within the different city council districts too, right? Because I live in City Council District 4, right? Well, I live in the only concentrated area of poverty. We could say District 4 and really be talking about the western part of District 4, and then it's still not equitable. So I think just real intent, making sure it's spread completely across the city, but even within the different City Council districts, making sure it's equitable within there as well. And there has to be transparency, but that's with anything.
Yeah. Those are great points. And I think I can share a map that we made that you have maybe seen and is probably not a surprise to you, but most of the CIP spending is in West Omaha. And so if we live on the eastern side of town, north or south, or sort of in the middle, we're subsidizing all of that road widening and stuff that's very expensive. So yeah.
Okay.
I guess I don't need to tell you more about that. Will, do you want to ask your DOD?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for being here, Kimara. So my question relates to Omaha's exclusionary zoning code. Today, low density, large lot, single family is the only housing type permitted in most of the city, undermining the success of our public transit and efforts at housing affordability. Would you support expanding the recently passed transit-oriented development policy to more corridors? And would you support permitting accessory dwelling units, which are granny flats, backyard cottages? They have a couple different names, citywide.
Absolutely. And when I talk about a 21st century city, this is one of the things that I mean. And so I appreciate even the willingness of different organizations. And Will, I've seen the work you've been doing with missing middle housing, and I appreciate that. And so the city and the mayor and those who she appoints, those who are put into leadership, we have to listen to things like this so that we can make sure that we push that forward. So absolutely, I would say yes to both.
All right, nice, short and sweet answer. Last year, Omaha approved 200 million in bonds to pay for street maintenance. Is this a good long-term solution for funding our street maintenance needs? If so, why? And if not, why not?
I would say no. I mean, you wouldn't take out a loan to paint the walls in your house, right? And so eventually this money is going to be due. And then how are you going to pass something else, right? So I would say long term, no, it's not a good investment, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Great, thanks. All right, I have one more question and then we can get to some more of the audience questions. I think we've had them start to come in the chat. So recent assessments of Dodge Street sidewalks find that they are difficult and dangerous to navigate, which is not a surprise if anyone has ever tried to walk on Dodge Street, especially this time of year. Where should funding come to improve the quality of infrastructure and maintenance? Is a pedestrian-friendly environment important to you? And if so, how would you support it?
A pedestrian-friendly environment is definitely important to me. My neighborhood actually has a lot of walking that goes on. I don't know about walkability, but I say we have to look at the complete budget, just overall period, and figure out what's working, what isn't, and get that fixed. But I would also say that when I think about Dodge Street, when I think about the sidewalks, even just being logical and again, listening and practicing intellectual curiosity, why aren't we applying to the middle? Instead of putting all that on the sidewalks, leaving the sidewalks to have to, I guess I would use the word suffer, which leave people unable to utilize them, which doesn't help me if I'm a bus rider, doesn't help people who are trying to get to work, doesn't help people who are trying to get around. So I guess that would be my answer. But I think also we have to listen. If we don't know the answer, we have to talk to those who understand and who know. And so, yeah, I think that's my answer.
Great, thanks. I think that's it from me. I think Kai and Sarah had a good question.
Okay.
Do y'all want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I was just noticing that you said you had to use public transport.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious how you plan to support making public transportation more attractive and more transportation.
It's kind of hard for me to hear you. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry. Can you just repeat your question for me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. I just noticed that you said you had to take public transport. And so I was just curious how you plan to support making public transportation more attractive and as a mode of transportation that people would be excited and want to take.
Well, I will tell you this. I was pretty disappointed that, the buses here just got internet in the last couple of years. I found it upsetting. To be honest with you, when I'm riding the bus, me, myself personally, I guess I'm not thinking of the attractiveness of it, maybe the comfort of it. I want it to be safe. I want it to be comfortable. I want it to have internet access. For me, I'm just trying to get where I'm going, right? When I think about it, maybe the outside part of it, the bus stops, I can't lie. When I look at the orbit right now, I see it and it's all nice and it's all fancy and it's all pretty and it's completely shoveled out when you go. But if I go get in the bus in front of my house, it's not like that. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking of when I'm getting on the bus. If I'm on it, I want the comfort. I want the access. When I say access, I mean being able to use things like internet. And I want to be able to get to places I need to go in a specific amount of time. I don't want to have to wait an hour to get to work. I don't want to have to wait 2.5 hours to get to the mall. So that's what I'm thinking about, but I'm open to discussion on making it more attractive. But unfortunately, I have to look at it through my own filters in this moment. And so that's pretty much what I see right now. But it's a really good question, and it's going to give me something to think about.
Cool, thanks. I think Metro did a really good job on the station design. They did like a 30% design, and Mode Shift turned out members and people in the community turned out and talked about what they wanted to see. And Metro took that feedback and listened to it and actually incorporated it into the design, a lot of it, and then had a like 70% design, and then they shared that and engaged with the community. So I think that's one of the few processes I've seen in Omaha that actually had some level of meaningful public engagement. So it would be great to see what else we could get at the city if we had more citizen engagement in meaningful ways like that to help get better things, you know? Yeah, Sarah, do you want to follow up on that with your question?
Yes, I guess just along those lines, and Lori, you and I are on the same page. We're all about participatory budgeting this evening and in general, because I think that a lot of us saw last year when this like fictional budget was passed that it felt really upsetting to a lot of us. And so I'm just wondering about what your thoughts are as far as a more participatory budget, how you might go about really including the community on the front end.
I like that you say really including, because we need to be intentional with that. Absolutely. I mean, I come from neighborhood association. We are all about us at that ground level being involved in the decision-making processes. So I definitely support that. And you can do it in a super structured way. It doesn't have to be messy. It doesn't have to be drawn out. I mean, we already have the foundations, I believe, to make that happen. So I'm definitely down for that. And I think it's an awesome idea. When you listen to the people, that only, in my opinion, when you listen to the people, policy decisions are more equitable, period. So I'm definitely down for that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I always feel like it's our money, but we don't actually feel like we get to talk about where it goes. How messed up is that? And then when we do, you know, like the work that Mode Shift has done around even just like the CIP maps, like we're talking about, it's all not where the majority of us live, and especially the populations that have historically been excluded from all of it. So yeah, cool. All right, excellent. And then Derek, do you want to, I agree with what Lori said, we should kind of ask some of the similar questions so that we can compare and contrast our candidates here. So Derek, take it away.
Yeah, the question I've been asking everybody. Well, first, I just wanted to say two things. My wife is a teacher at Omaha South, and before that, she taught at Central. And people always talk about that being sort of the urban high school, but the amenities, because you were bringing this South Omaha feeling to it. I know you're a bear, but you bring the South Omaha perspective that like the amenities that her students get when they exit the school building, they're right next to a grocery store, they're right next to street vendors, are way higher than any other school that I've seen around. So like when we talk about like what we want in urban amenities, I think we're doing it really well in South Omaha, just that most people don't see it. That's just a side note, sorry. Yeah. My actual question is about design, and specifically about how we design streets to avoid the need for police to be the enforcer of the speed limit or the things that we want people to do. Right now, you know, with design speed, we design the roads so that people can drive really quickly along them, which leads to the fact that everybody's speeding, which means that the police basically have a blank check to pull over anyone they choose to pull over. And that's arbitrary and not fairly distributed. How do we change that?
I guess I would say the first thing I think of is traffic calming devices, like speed bumps, roundabouts. Outside of that, I would say just researching and looking to see what works. But that's the first thing that crosses my mind, is probably those traffic calming devices, depending on the neighborhoods, right? And that would be the limit of my knowledge in this moment, but I am a researcher by nature. And so that's definitely something that I can continue research. And I have old woman eyes, so whatever you just put up, I didn't read any words on it.
Okay. Like clapping hands.
Oh, hand clap.
Yeah,
okay.
Just clapping. I just have a whole stack of like emoji situation here, so I'm just doing that.
That's pretty neat. Okay. Yeah. But that would be my answer. That's a really good question, though. I think about that in my neighborhood often. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour and regularly 35 plus. Narrowing lanes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what they, yep. I'm sorry. I'm reading the comments.
I was like, wow, narrowing lanes, right on. I was like, oh, Lord,
Yeah.
like that chat.
Narrowing lanes and road diets. I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head. Yeah, no, but that's exactly what we're leading.
And that's what the Vision Zero coordinators hopefully going to help us start implementing, because that's what, you know, we're all terrified that he's going to get stuck on paperwork because that's what we've heard from the ALAC committee. But like that is in I'll speak for myself. That's my opinion. What we're hoping that the coordinator can do is like actually get to work on things that we know that work. Like you said, if you don't know what it is, let's look at what's working elsewhere. We see a lot of examples of how it can work. We need the political willpower to get it done here. And hopefully the Vision Zero coordinator will be kind of that point person, and we'll have a lot of support to get things actually done instead of just talking about them.
And have an advocate at the city level. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And actually, yeah, also in the chat, we are going to invite him to a member meeting after we're through the elections. And then we have Rachel Jacobson from Heritage Services in May. And then, yeah, we're going to hope to get the Vision Zero coordinator to join us to kind of chat about what he's up to. Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah, we have him for June.
Not confirmed, but that is the goal.
Okay.
He was also supposed to come to that Walk With Us event. That didn't happen. So I think he's right now getting, you know, he's new. We'll give him a little minute to settle in, and then hope his supervisors are interested in sharing him with us for a moment. But yeah, that's the goal.
Nice.
Let's see, who else had good questions last time? Clyde, you had one. Do you want to, and Kimara actually mentioned Senator Wayne's bill that I think you want to ask about.
Yeah, back in 2019, Senator Wayne introduced the Regional Metropolitan Transit Authority Act, and the legislature passed it. The governor vetoed it. And he managed one of the few veto overrides that the legislature's accomplished. He did a miraculous job getting it approved. And now it's time. It only pertains to Omaha, cities of the metropolitan class. And but it seems like it's been kind of slowed down getting it implemented. And although the city says, well, Omaha Transit's an independent agency, well, the mayor appoints the existing board. And so if you're elected mayor, will you see to it that that bill or that authority gets implemented?
Can everyone else hear Clyde? Is it just me that can't hear Clyde?
Yeah,
I hear him.
That was just you.
Wow, it's me. Okay, sorry, everyone.
Oh, I thought I finished. I was asking if you're elected mayor, will you get that regional transportation authority implemented?
Yes, and you know, and you make me think. It often baffles me how I never really see the mayor as someone who really advocates at the county level or at the state level for things I think truly really will benefit the community. So my answer to that is yes. And as mayor, I would be an advocate. I mean, I think the people who elect, or even if they don't elect, they still need someone to advocate for them in that area. I mean, being mayor is more than just being elected to that position. It goes way deeper than people think. So absolutely, and I appreciate the question.
Great, wonderful, thank you.
Well, thanks, Clyde. Cindy, do you want to ask your question? Maybe you can make it a little more concise. Hi, Derek.
Get a little what?
More concise.
Oh, yeah. Right now, the sidewalks in the city of Omaha are not seen as modes of transportation. Therefore, they get neglected. So how would you work with that, and how would you see sidewalks being funded?
I think this just basically comes down to leadership and how we define things. I think that I would agree with you. I think you say what needs to be done. As far as how it is funded, again, we have to look at the budget, see what's working and see what's not. But I agree with you, and we can look into that and make sure that that happens. Yeah. But it's something we have to talk about. We have to look at that budget, find the money for it. I mean, it's just something that we have to do. But I agree with you. And people should have the ability to walk around and be safe when they're walking. I just firmly believe that. I heard you mention even earlier the crosswalks. And I agree with you 100%. And that baffles me because I thought it was proven that they actually increased safety for people. And I thought that it was proven that they, notified cars not to come into that area. So I guess I was a little bit thrown off about that when you were talking about it earlier, but I agree with you.
That was the leadership right now has that viewpoint.
Yeah. And that's what baffles me, how someone has that viewpoint, which to me is a problem with the leadership. So, which also proves that you have to have the right person in leadership, even outside of just the mayor, but in the different departments as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Would you be willing to appoint a new person to lead the Public Works Department if you were mayor?
I'm willing to look at every single person who's leading anything. And if it's not being done the right way, then absolutely.
Great. We have found that to be a major barrier to progress around a lot of issues that we care about. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Is there a part of Sarah, do you want to ask your question?
I just like what you said, Kimara, with like, we have the money, we just have to, because that's, I guess that's my opinion, is that we also have the resources, is just how we choose to spend them. And so I was just wondering if there's a specific area within the budget that you've noticed that you feel looks a little inflated or overfunded that you would feel comfortable pulling from. I mean, that's a big question.
We are definitely looking at the whole thing. The whole thing. I mean, there's definitely places that need more. There are places that can be looked at as well, but looking at the whole thing, without a doubt. I'm trying to read the comments too, but it's hard for me.
Yeah, there's a lot. And yeah, I guess if you're on your phone,
and it's so small.
Yeah.
I feel so old, like, oh my gosh.
Lori, I see your question about, what more does Kimara want us to know about her and what she's bringing to the race. Let's let her talk about that sort of at the end, maybe in her sort of final comments. What else did we ask questions about last time, or trying to think. Will, did you have a follow-up question? You had one last time.
Yeah, I had one sort of diving into the capital improvement program. So we have about $270 million earmarked for road and intersection widening, and most of that is earmarked for West Omaha. Would you support rescuing some of those dollars for a protected bicycle/mobility lane network, or other, traffic calming road diet type projects?
Absolutely.
And mobility lane combining bicycles and scooters. Sorry, Kimara.
No, I'm so sorry for cutting you off. Yes, and I was gonna say I would also add to that, finding ways to also educate the communities around it to make sure people truly understand the benefit. Sometimes I noticed when we put the bike lanes in North and South Omaha, I got a lot of negative feedback. People don't understand the benefits all the time. And so really working with like the neighborhood groups, One Omaha, to make sure we're also spreading the message even ahead of time, how beneficial this is to the community, so you get more buy-in as well. But that's with anything, I think. And that just comes with having real communication from the office. I'm sorry, I've never been on here and gotten a phone call. Having real communication from the mayor's office, and really being intentional and working with different groups and organizations too. I think the education is just very important so people understand, because they have buy-in.
Great, thanks. It looks like there's a whole bunch of questions about one-way streets. I know there's a couple people that care about that are in my neighborhood in Dundee, where we have Farnham Street that, is two-way, and then it's one way this way sometimes, and it's one way the other way sometimes, which I think is very confusing to people. So I know that that's an issue that people really care about. And then I guess, Sarah, do you want to add on, or Lori, about one-way streets?
I've talked a lot. Lori or Amanda, yeah. Do you want to?
I'm interested in Farnham, but I think UNMC is going to drive that change in the near future. So It's been an ongoing thing, but I don't have to hop on that soapbox. I'd like to turn it over to Amanda because I think she has a better sense of like just generally the value or disincentive of having so many one-way streets in our downtown core.
Yes, that is definitely a question that I have. Is in the Heartland 2050 discussions a few years ago, that was identified as one way to make our city a lot more walkable, and it was a priority, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And when you think about just safety, and you think, and just look at 13th Street, where it can be like 5 lanes going north, you know, it makes you go faster, and that's a very wide street to try to cross. And so would you be open to looking into changing it back to 2-way?
I definitely would. And I would even appreciate, I'm a researcher by nature, so I'd even like to research that more and even learn more about that, because I'm not familiar with the ins and outs and the issues that come with having one-way streets like that. So I'm definitely open to that conversation. I'm also open to learning more about it too, because this is something new to me and interesting to me.
Downtown area.
I on it. Oh no. Hello?
I think we're here. I think we might have lost Amanda.
Oh, God. I got nervous. Okay.
Cool. Thanks. Amanda, did you hear that?
No.
Oh no.
I got kicked out right after I stopped talking.
I was saying that, you know, I said I would definitely be open. And then I would also even like more information. I was saying that I'm a researcher. I love to practice intellectual curiosity. And so I'm not all the way familiar with the issues that you were bringing up. So I want to learn more about it as well as what I was saying.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Any other burning question? One last question people want to ask. Sarah, you want to ask your question about the like medians and?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm sure you remember when the median homelessness crime became a thing, and I was just wondering if you have any feelings about that, the median ban, if you would reverse it, how you feel about it. I have a lot of feelings, of course, but yeah, tell us what you think.
You know, you're talking to somebody who every time I pass someone, I'm stopping to find whatever money I have to try to help, because I just don't believe that people are standing outside in negative 20-degree weather because they want to. You know, I think this is one of those situations where we have to get people sitting down who can really listen and who also are empathetic and really understand the needs of this city. We have a major homelessness issue. So why are we as a city not working with our nonprofits and all these organizations and resources that we have here to address this issue? You cannot police your way out of all of these issues. You just can't do it. You're just going to overburden yourself and your city with that. So that's where I stand right now. And you better believe every time I see somebody, if I have a $20 bill, they're getting it, because there's no way in the world, and I'm broke, but there's no way in the world you're sitting out there because you want to. And it just breaks my heart that we have this major homelessness issue here. And with all of these nonprofits and resources we have here, it baffles me. It kind of baffles me, but this is why I say we need leadership who cares about all people and not just select groups.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. That is exactly how I feel. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that was an awesome way to end it. And we're about at time. So maybe, Liz, if you think we can move into the closing thoughts with you tonight, Kimara, and then let all of us go on with our merry evenings.
Yeah. Do you want to wrap it up?
Okay. Okay. Well, like I said, my name is Kimara Snipes. You know, now that Jim Kavanaugh has dropped out of the race, I am the only elected official that stands between Jean Stothert and a third attempt to lead this city, which I don't believe that she has earned. I mentioned having a long history of dedication to the city, and I do. And as an alliance leader and as a school board member, I have been friendly with Jean Stothert, but I'm being honest, and she just has not earned another term in office. We need someone who cares about all people, not just select groups of people. We have to find a way to push Omaha forward into a 21st century city when it comes to transportation, when it comes to jobs, but even outside of all of that, just when it comes to learning how to collaborate and work well with one another. That's how you push neighborhoods forward. That's how you push people forward. So I'm ready to bring my experiences with me. I'm glad to have the endorsements of Senator Ben Nelson, both Cara Eastman and Ann Ashford and Terry Moore, because they see the ability to unite and to heal, and not just certain parts of the city, but the whole city. So no more North Omaha, South Omaha, West Omaha. This is one city. And when I'm elected, we're going to look like it, act like it, and feel like it. And I'm looking forward to it. So my website is kimarasnipes.com. You can go and join the team. You can also go and donate as well. I really appreciate the time tonight. I appreciate everything you're doing when it comes to transportation. Don't stop the fight. I promise to work with you once in office, and I really, really look forward to it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Kimara. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. The chat is hard for me to see, but thank you, everyone, very, very much.
There's a lot of thanks, and there's some hearts and claps and stuff if you can't see them.
My number is also on my website. So if you want to reach out, please feel free to. I try to be as accessible as possible.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
right.
you. Have a good night.
You too.
Remember, if
Bye,
you're
Sarah,
already...
Congratulations.
Oh gosh, thank you. Yeah, exciting times.
We'll have to chat about your race one day.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna hit